Okay, yes, Mike Markham was made a national name by Art Bell on this program back in the 90s. He was a 21-year-old electrical school dropout. He went to Rio Grande College in Rio Grande, Ohio, and left school and moved to a little town called Stanberry, Missouri, which is about 27 miles from where I'm sitting right now. It's right now approximately 1,200 people. And he was sitting around the house he was renting one night, and he was kind of bored, and he built a Jacob's ladder. And for those out there who aren't familiar with what a Jacob's ladder is, it's two vertical pieces of metal that you send an electric current through, and the current jumps between the two pieces of metal until it dissipates at the top. I think Dr. Frankenstein brought the monster to life.
Yeah.
For these. Anyway,
we see those in a certain type of movies, and people would recognize both by look and by sound.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he built one of these things, and he noticed a weird heat signature hovering over this Jacob's ladder, and he did what any guy would do. He threw something at it. He picked up a finishing screw off of his table and threw it at the hole, and when it hit the hole, it disappeared. And it was gone for maybe 5 to 8 seconds, and then it hit the table again. And he jumped immediately to the conclusion that he built a time machine. And he wanted to build a bigger one because, hey, if I built a time machine, I want to build one big enough for me to jump through. And the cool part of the story is that he didn't want to go through to increase the body of knowledge or to benefit mankind. He wanted to go 3 days in the future to get the lottery numbers.
It was either going to be that or to impress a girl. Just that'd be the other reason you do it. Go, hey, look what I can do. That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think the money might impress the girls too.
They might tie it in together. Okay, fair enough.
Well, in order to build a man-sized one, he had to have more power than what was coming through the outlet. And him and a few friends one day went to a substation of St. Joe Power and Light and stole 6 power line transformers, which these things are huge. They had to make a couple trips to do it, and it was in the middle of the day, 11 o'clock in the mornings when they lifted the first one. So I have no idea why they weren't caught. But they took them all back to his house, and he built a man-sized Jacob's ladder on his back porch. And he got caught because when he fired the thing up, all the lights in town went off. And I interviewed the city manager who worked for the city electric department at the time, and I interviewed his arresting officer. And you'd asked the question about what interviews were the most credible. As soon as I mentioned Mike's name, these guys, I had to wait a few minutes for him to stop laughing.
Right.
But you say that it's the most credible. It was the most credible that he had something that he threw, into, and then it fell seconds later, and so he looks at that in terms of a time machine. But making a Jacob's ladder that actually makes people disappear, that's not something he's done yet.
Well, and that's a big question. Nobody knows. After he spent 3 months in jail, his story hit the AP wire, and that's when Art Bell picked it up and interviewed him. Markham, after he got out of jail, moved to St. Joseph, and because of Art's exposure, he had people donating money and equipment to him to build this thing legally. And in the apartment building he was in, when he was working on it, his landlord kicked him out because there was a rumor that he'd thrown a cat through the thing.
Okay.
And and the quote in the St. Joseph News Press from Markham was, "That cat thing, it ain't true."
Yeah, the first a cat thrown into an interdimension, and that the cat never came back is the assumption.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And then Markham disappeared and never came back.
But he didn't disappear through that.
Well, who knows? All of his friends in St. Joseph in 1999, he just vanished. Nobody knew what happened to him. And I did quite a bit of digging to try and find somebody who'd seen him afterward, and I did. I found somebody who lives in Cincinnati who lived in the same apartment complex as Markham did for a couple of years. Markham since moved, and he has no idea where the guy is. But he claims that while he was sitting around drinking sodas and playing video games, Markham would tell him about the time machine. And he told him that he'd built the thing again, and he described a bunch of gadgets that he played with when he went into the future. And what he described was the iPhone and various video games. And the guy said he described it like he'd used the iPhone and like he'd sat down and played these video games. But this was years before any of this was released. So he's convinced that Markham did build his time machine and did go to the future, and now he's gone again.
Okay, well, why didn't he get the lottery numbers? That was the plan, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was. Well, maybe after playing with the iPhone, he went to the past, and it's maybe his invention now.
Maybe.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
This is Robert from New Jersey.
Robert, time has come. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Just fine.
What you are asking is about a physical time machine that is built with nuts and bolts and the traditional methods, and yes, they do exist.
Wait a minute. You said, yes, they do exist. Again, that's a statement of fact. How do you know that?
I know for a fact because I've seen and worked on them.
You've seen and worked on them?
What you are asking about, everything is based on the theory of Tesla.
Yes,
Tesla had these theories. He was by far in advance of Einstein. The first time the Americans tried this was the Philadelphia experiment. Tesla had backed out by that point.
Well, now, the Philadelphia experiment was not an experiment about time travel.
No.
It was an attempt to make a U.S. ship invisible. That's right. Now, the effects, however, may, in fact, involve time travel. No question about that. But
everything was based on the work of Tesla. You're talking about frequency and laser light, where the speeds have to... What you are talking about is energy that is required that is phenomenal because the speed that you have to go at light is incredible. Light has to reach startling speeds and frequencies.
You're claiming you've worked on one of these machines?
I can tell you I've seen them, and they're...
All right, well then tell me where.
There is one in the New York area, and the Nazis were working on time travel before and during World War II.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Those were the two experiences. The Soviets also tried, but failed miserably.
Can you tell me how you got access to see such a thing?
I can tell you no more than what I'm telling you now. But most of the people that have gone through the portals to travel have never come back.
Yeah.
So the vast majority, what you are asking, the vast majority of people that have gone through those portals, probably like the two people that you said who were working on these things, where they would have gotten the energy and the parts, because time is a third dimension concept. It does not exist in any other dimension.
Well, I don't know how long you've been listening to my program, but Madman Markham was, in fact, modulating the field he created with a laser. Did you know that?
Yes, and I heard that tonight.
Oh, you did know that.
What you are... Well, see, the concepts, they do have the physics because all of this was based on the work of Tesla, who was by far ahead of his time. Most of his writings that were confiscated later on have never been seen.
That's right.
So he had a plan to light up the world with electricity as long as it would be free forever for humanity from his Tesla World Tower, which never came to fruition because there was no money in it, and he was squashed. But he did talk about these things, so all of the things that you are asking are based on his work. Number two, when you go through the portal, you don't know where you're going to actually wind up. You have rough estimates. You don't know exactly.
How rough?
Sometimes days, weeks, or years.
So you could miss your destination in time by days, weeks, or even years.
Yes. So what you're asking about is that most of these people who have gone through have never come back. Number two...
Well, the ones that I've experienced, that I've been talking to about time travel, have not come back. And you're telling me that's a truth of time travel? You know that to be a truth? That it's a one-way trip?
It depends what kind of machine you're using. Some are one way. Others you can get back, but you make the mistake of assuming that once you're there, it's going to be so easy. You're going back in time, different languages, different clothing, different customs. There are universal laws about interference in these things that cannot be broken.
What, for example?
Well, you make you make the assumption that the government and other people make who want to control destinies that things can be changed. There are certain very small things that can be changed, but major things cannot be changed. Time flows forward as it flows backwards. So in reality, there is really no future and no past, but just the eternal present. So you are asking various questions. If you would ask me more detailed questions, I could give you more detailed answers.
Well, you said there's really no future and past, but just an
eternal present that is ever flowing forward and backward.
Then there is, yes, but you seem to be destroying your own contention that time travel is possible.
Let me just tell you this. What you are asking is based on something called sacred geometry. Bruce R. Cathy did work on this. There were other people who've done work on this, Tesla, and there were a few others. You can travel back 2,500,000 years in time before you hit a time wall. You can travel up to 2012, and you cannot go beyond that.
There's another wall at 2012?
The end of the main calendar,
yes.
Yes.
Is there any detail with regard to particularly the future that you can tell me?
Yes.
Other than the wall, I mean, it sounds like it all ends then. Otherwise, between now and 2012.
Let me answer some questions for you, Art.
Go.
You go back to 2,500,000 years ago. That is the end of Lemuria. You can go forward to 2012. There was a cataclysm on the planet 2,500,000 years ago that had to do with the sliding into a new time dimension that we are in now. It was a cataclysm at the end of the Lemurian civilization, which had lasted about 3 million years. So if you were to go back, if you could traverse that wall, which you cannot, it's a different race. It's actually a different type of time and a different type of dimension.
Is it another cataclysm at 2012? Do we know anything of the nature?
2012 is a positive date. Krishna gave that date, Buddha gave that date, and Christ gave that date. The Mayan calendar gives the date because we're going into fourth dimension. There is no more time in fourth dimension. It will be what Krishna talked about, the end of Kali Yuga.
And probably the Christians regard as the Lord coming back and, Christians all getting sucked up like in a vacuum. Yeah, okay. Huh. Well, there's somebody who claims to know that a machine exists among other places in New York State.
The last thought on this, and then we'll put the show to bed tonight. Terry?
Oh, okay. In 1980, my mom and I went to New York, and we were walking around, and we came across this building that had a bunch of barbed wire, and some guards came out and made us run to the other side of the street, pushed us. There's some vans that came, and some guys in coats were coming out, and I said to the guards, why do we have to move, and what are these people? And they said, it's a time travel research lab that belongs to the government. And I said, well, where are the people going? They said, they're going over to the Twin Towers. And I said, oh, that's where we're going. Where is it? And they said, well, look over the building right there. It's right over the building. You just go down here and around the corner. And so I was wondering if the research lab is still there and if you had heard if it had anything to do with the Twin Towers.
Well, we talked about time travel last night, actually, on Coast to Coast, and we talked about whether or not anybody had done it. I had Dr. Cliff Pickover on, and he said no, that there had never been any actual experiments in that he was aware of at an academic level or that. That's all just coincidental to that conversation. Not saying what you said didn't happen. In the current edition of the After Dark newsletter, there's a lot of stuff about time travel, but I'll look into that one, Terry. It probably in the 10 seconds we have left, I can't do that justice.
On our specially designated time traveler line, you are on the air.
Yes, Mr. Bell.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, I had to go out in the middle of nowhere so I could see him coming. I've come in more from the past than from the future, and it does not take nearly as much energy as people think to travel time.
Oh?
No, it's more a manipulation of an electromagnetic field with radio frequencies.
Yeah, well, the the Philadelphia experiment was about exactly that, and I'm not immune to believing what you're saying, that there could be a combination of electromagnetic energy and rotating RF fields and so forth that could cause exactly that. And you're claiming that's what you have done, and you've come from the past?
More from the past, about the mid-'70s. Your antenna array, that loop antenna array, I haven't seen it, but it sounds like you're real close to actually completing a fairly large circumference for manipulating an area of time.
So you're claiming you came from the 70s, huh?
About the mid-'70s.
About the mid-'70s. And is this a discovery, this mechanism to allow time travel, is it a discovery you made, stumbled on yourself, or others did?
It was something I stumbled on, and I have been found, and I have been given ground rules to follow.
Somebody or something found you?
It's a larger organization than just the government. It's pretty... There's the powers that be that control the government.
Yes.
They also control a group that patrols the time.
Oh, now this is interesting. So then there are certain rules to time travel, which apparently were laid down for you. Is that it?
Yes. If I violate any of those on this phone call, they'll find me faster than I can leave here.
All right. Try and tell me what you can of the rules for time travel. I mean, what are the? Can you talk about that at all?
To a certain extent, there's a common sense rules. You're not going to go into, like you say, Vegas and play the odds in your favor. You can, to an extent, to where you need money to survive, or to accomplish a mission.
But you can't get greedy.
No, they'll come down on you before you ever get to that point.
They. Might we understand the nature of they? Or them?
Your Illuminati is a close understanding, about as close as you're going to get to it.
You believe the Illuminati are the guardians of the secret?
It's an organization that's the Illuminati would pale in a comparison of their barbarism.
I see. So whatever this organization is, its head and tails above the Illuminati even.
I would say the Illuminati is what they have propagated as, kind of their cover. That the Illuminati, some people say the Illuminati are out there for world domination and control.
Some say.
They'll stop at no means to do it. Mm-hmm. But these people, they're really not out there for domination and control. They're out there to further themselves.
And keep control of people like you.
They can lay down some pretty strict rules.
If you could move through time once, I'm presuming you could do it again.
I can. It's not too hard to do. The hard part is setting up, and I made the mistake of coming to a time where monitoring the radio frequencies and everything is a lot more advanced than I ever thought it could be.
True enough.
And my mistake is for me to set up the type of equipment I would need the moment I turned it on, they would find it. And by the time I tuned in frequencies, they'd be there to stop me.
Fascinating. So was any part of the rules and the warnings laid down that you shall not do it again? Was there concern about that, or what?
If I am to travel, it'll be by their means.
By their means?
Yes, at their discretion and their means.
And I assume that they found you based on what frequencies were generated when you did this.
Yes, they were very high voltage, low amperage electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, that makes sense. Electrostatic energy of some sort and a magnetic field. That's fascinating. And you say you're out and concerned right now that you say something that would bring...
If I stayed down, if I were to speak the wrong things, they could be out in the bushes before I get here waiting for me. So I'm pretty sure I'll be pretty cool on this call. I'm not too afraid of saying the wrong thing, or I think I would have been stopped by now before I made the call.
Were you just a tinkerer, or how did you stumble into this?
Yeah, it was major league tinkering with radios and messing around with 8-tracks and old recorders and stuff. It was nothing I really intended to do, but when your hair stands up on your hands and it's so localized, at the same time, the the feeling you get. The Hutchison effect is real close from my observation.
That's fascinating, and that kind of figures, too. Any ill effects because of time travel?
Not that I've experienced. Some of the ill effects that I've heard of, which is why they want me to use their equipment,
Yes.
are, for instance, materializing 30 or 40,000 feet above the ground.
That would be bad.
Yeah, it's more getting stuck in a magnetic stream outside the stratosphere, or, you kind of pull in on the wrong spot, is what they're explaining to me. I don't understand a lot of what I did or how I did it, or how it worked. All I know is I turned it on, I said, what the heck, let's try it, and I came out in about 1993.
I'm trying to even imagine what it would be like to jump 20 years. I mean, the technology and the world would have changed so much in 20 years that it'd be almost hard to get around.
Yeah, the garage was the people that lived in the place that I popped into where I'd left. They had completely remodeled the garage. I felt like I just stepped into a different room. And when I went walking back into the house and all my parents' furniture was gone, and here they are with these cordless phones and everything. I kind of flipped out. And, of course, they flipped out when they saw me.
I'm sure they did. They probably thought, my God, it's a ghost or worse.
Yes. Now, I would like to go ahead and tell you about one of the missions I was able to go on.
All right.
It was for RFID, radio frequencies IDs.
Oh, yes.
Now, they are a major component in being able to locate and track individuals in terrorism.
I would think so.
And it's the quickest way to regain our privacy. As bizarre as that may sound,
it does sound counterintuitive. I mean, you're talking about an RFID, something that would tag you, essentially, but you're saying it really would be our salvation.
They tag you, they monitor your movements, so that if you go somewhere and do something wrong, they can't find you.
Got it.
But they don't monitor you to the point where they know what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're thinking about, or something like that.
You sound like an advocate for the technology.
Only because it's really what kind of the Patriot Act that's coming out is a real dangerous thing, and it threatens to actually expose this organization.
Really?
And it's one organization I'd like to go ahead and keep a lid on.
Apparently. Although, I wonder how you figure this call is okay.
I would have been stopped before I made the call. That's all I can think. I've been stopped from going to Vegas before.
It's kind of a roll of the dice. They've kept you from Las Vegas, have they?
Yeah, my first mission, I did go into the future, and I did research some stocks, but I happened to catch the front page of the sports section. And
all right.
I thought I'd go back, and they didn't cotton to that idea.
Uh-huh. I appreciate your call, and I guess your plans are what? To live out your life in the time you've now arrived in, or to make another jump?
I can't make some plans. They've got me in a job where they got a harness on me. They got a good idea where I'm at, where I'm going to be.
Uh-huh.
And I think my plans are maybe someday, if I can, with a little bit of luck, figure out how the device they're using is able to pinpoint locations so easily, I might be able to do the same thing and just get back out of here.
If you were to make another jump, where or when, more likely, would you go?
I'm thinking I'd like to get past 2025.
I hope we all get past 2025, and thank you very, very much for the call. Or 2012, for that matter. Now, you see, that call and calls like that are the reason that I leave such lines open. That was a scratch-your-head kind of call, wasn't it? It sounded real, didn't it? It didn't sound made up. It came rolling off too easily and too well, and the aspects of what he said seemed too logical. And, well, if there were time travel, and it was known at least by an elite few, there might be an organization that would monitor such movements for fear of what might occur. Hi there, on the Time Traveler line. You're on the air.
Hi, Art. How are you today?
I'm all right. Where are you, sir?
I'd rather not say, if that's okay.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine. We allow anonymity here. You're calling this line for obvious reasons. You believe you've traveled in time.
Oh, I know I've traveled in time.
That's the attitude.
And I've traveled back in time, exactly. I'll try to keep it short.
All right. You've traveled back in time to this time, or you've traveled from this time back?
From this time to some type of start of creation. I'm not sure. But what had happened is a doctor had bought a home. He was his name is Dr. I don't know if I should
all right,
say.
No, don't. We don't
Okay.
need the name. It's not important.
All right. And he invited us to a barbecue as a housewarming. And he had dozens of birds and whatnot in his garage. And I thought nothing of this. And my wife and I, we had a great time. We were, joking and laughing. And there were several other neighbors. And he came up with a for instance, of have you ever gone back in time? Oh. And after the dinner and everything, I thought it was a joke. And he pulled out a contraption and put it in the backyard. And it was about the size of a small triangular phone booth. And I laughed. I thought it was ridiculous. And I said, how can you travel in time back on that? And he said, well, let me show you. And he put 2 or 3 birds, I think it was 3 birds actually, in the contraption.
Were you the only other one there?
No, my wife was there.
Your wife was there?
And actually another couple was there.
Okay. You put birds in.
And he started up a generator, and it made a horrific noise, and it was like a lightning bolt. It was something that I can't even describe. I couldn't even see for about 10 seconds after it illuminated in the corner of the backyard. And I thought it was a trick. I thought it was a magic trick, and I laughed. I thought this is fantastic. He's a magician.
Right.
And
probably what I think too.
Well, about 10 minutes later, he said, "No, watch it. It'll return." And with almost the same energy, not quite as much. It did return. There was a flash, and
the birds were back.
The birds were back, and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous.
Was this a regular physician kind of doctor? I mean, an internist or something or another normal, or was he?
He was in physics, I believe.
That kind of doctorate. Okay, all right.
Now he takes the dog, his own personal dog. And he does this. Now, to try to speed up the story, I know you're on a time frame.
No. Let's take this as it unfolds.
I'm just nervous. I never really spoke about this.
I understand. No, go
and,
ahead. Let it
actually,
unfold.
it's quite scary because I'll get to the point in a minute. He put the dog into this booth type thing.
Right.
And he energized it, and he did it again for a second time.
Dog goeth and cometh.
Now the dog has gone. Approximately 10 minutes later, he makes the dog return. Now he asks, do I have any volunteers? Now again, I think this is a magic trick.
And so?
I volunteer. Having probably a few too many Budweisers.
Okay.
At that particular time. And I sit in this contraption. Well, I've never been so scared in my life. It's like somebody put a flash bulb on a camera in my face.
Right.
That's all I can remember. I don't remember anything else.
You don't remember going somewhere?
I don't remember anything else but like a flash bulb in my face. That's all I can describe it as.
And the next thing you remember?
Well, a thump, like I fell out of bed, type of, like boom, I've landed somewhere.
Right.
Now, I look, and I'm in the middle of some forest. I don't know where I am. I have no idea. I can't tell you where I am. I have no idea. And I get out, and I'm like, oh my God, where am I? I don't know where I am.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm in fear because I don't know what to think. I don't have any inclination. The only thing I can tell you is that it might be at dusk or dawn.
You could have been in the jungles of Brazil or something, for all you know.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't even tell you. I don't know where I was.
So-
All I know is I was in some kind of forest.
Can you remember what you did? Did you
Well,
walk? Were you able to function in this world, or were you just
Yes.
there and gone, or what?
No, I was able to get out of the vehicle, or whatever you want to call it.
It was there physically with you.
It was with me.
Gotcha. All right.
It was with me.
So out you go.
So I just stepped around, and I didn't want to go away too far away from the vehicle, figuring that I'd be stuck there.
Good figuring.
So, again, I don't know what time it is. It was either dusk or dawn. I don't know. And I got back in the vehicle. Maybe 3 minutes had taken place.
Right.
And there was like a little small. It's like a door. I don't want to call it a door, but it's an open. It really, there was nothing there, but it's like a door that you could open and you could walk out. I thought it was a joke.
Uh-huh.
And then again, a flash bulb. Bam. I don't remember anything, and I remember people laughing, and that's all I can remember.
Like, hey, look, he's back. Ha ha.
Yeah, and that was it.
Ha ha.
Now,
Yes.
let me get to the creepy part, and this is the scary part. Supposedly, this doctor that had invited us over, he just bought the house, he had only been living there for a month, commit suicide in his garage. From some obscure reason.
This is some time later. How much?
This is approximately 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, you find the doctor
weeks
is now the PhD has committed suicide.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And there's nothing on the premises. His car is gone. His, and we're all, again, we're wondering what happened.
Yeah.
And there is no basis for why this man has done this. He was a jubilant single man in his 59, 60 years old, I would say. I think it was 59, if my memory is right. But anyway, and that was it. I mean, that was,
That's the story. That's plenty story. That's plenty of story, sir. Now, you think that you were either shifted geographically or shifted in time?
Oh, no doubt.
By whatever this was that he had. There was no trace of any of this machinery, I assume, after his death that you were aware of?
Well, no, not that I know of. And matter of fact, I inquired about it, and I said that I made up a story, and I just happened to say, he was like an electronics tech, and he had stuff in the garage. Does anybody know about that? And they said no.
Do you think he's really dead?
I don't know. I just don't know. They had a hearse did drive up, and I did see them, putting,
a body,
what appeared was a corpse into the car. But again, without revealing any names or anything.
Please don't.
No, of course not.
I wonder if you were Dr. Mengele's first experiment there, or first human guinea pig. Have you ever wondered about that? In other words, he did it with the animals, but maybe, in sort of a jocular, we're at a party, you've had a few beers, step in here and let me show you something really cool type thing.
Well, maybe.
You might have been his first.
It's a possibility, but...
And maybe he's now elsewhere, and what they think, the body they think they loaded in, is just the one they happen to load in this dimension.
It's a possibility, but after the fact, that when I came back and, we were talking later, and as the party, broke up and whatnot, I said, exactly what happened? And he said, well, I've discovered a generating system that, to put it in layman's terms, will transport you back and forth into time. And I said, that's absolutely ludicrous. I've never heard of such a thing. And he said, well, that's why I had you do it first, to experience it, because otherwise you would never believe me. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I started thinking maybe he was crazy, but then I'm thinking, well, where was I? Where did I go?
Sure.
So, I mean, what better way to prove it to you than to do it first and then talk about it?
Listen, you're absolutely right. That's a whale of a story. That's a beaut. That's a real beaut. Maybe that man encountered somebody who had deciphered the nature of time travel or the way to achieve time travel. I really do believe that there is a way to do it. There are ways to travel in time. And again, you've got to think about this a little bit. Even assuming that it's not until we get to Pentium 9000 that we discover time travel, if there is such an eventuality, which I believe there will be, then they could easily be here now. Well, all right. That's it. We will continue to take time traveler calls tonight. Dear Art, I had to fax when I heard other time travelers calling in from any time past the year 2500 AD. Please let me explain. Time travel was invented in 2034. Offshoots of certain successful fusion reactor research allowed scientists at CERN to produce the world's first contained singularity engine. The basic design involves rotating singularities inside a magnetic field. By altering the speed and direction of rotation, you can travel both forward and backward in time. Time itself can be understood in terms of connected lines. When you go back in time, you travel on your original timeline. When you turn the singularity engine off, a new timeline is created due to the fact that you and your time machine are now there. In other words, a new universe is created. To get back to your original line, you must travel a split second farther back and immediately throw the engine into forward without turning it off. Some interesting outcomes of this are: 1. You meet yourself. I have done it often, even taken a younger version of myself along for a few rides before returning myself to the new timeline and going back to mine. 2. You can alter history in the new universe that you have just created. Most of the time, the changes are subtle. Sometimes I'll notice car models that don't exist or books that come out late. The oldest one was a skyscraper that wasn't built in a near-favorite store of mine in New York. Interestingly, when you travel in time, you must compensate for the orbit of the Earth. Since the time machine doesn't move, you have to adjust the engine so you remain on the planet when you turn it off. Unfortunately, it was also discovered that anyone going forward in time from my 2036 hit a brick wall in the year 2564. Everyone who has ever been there has reported that nothing exists. When the machine is turned off, you find yourself surrounded by blackness and silence. Now, most time travelers are trying to find out where the line went bad by going into the past, creating a new universe, and proceeding forward to see if the same thing results in 2564. It appears the line went bad around the year 2000. I'm here now, in this time, to test a few theories of mine before going forward. Now, for the future, you might want to know about. 1. Y2K is a disaster. Many people die on the highways when they freeze to death trying to get to warmer weather. 2. The government tries to keep power by instituting martial law, but all of it collapses when their efforts to bring the power back up fail. 3. A power facility in Denver is able to restart itself, but is mobbed by hundreds of thousands of people and destroyed. This convinces most that maybe we shouldn't bring the old system back up. 4. A few years later, communal government system is developed after the Constitution takes a few twists. China retakes Taiwan. Israel wins the largest battle for their life, and Russia is covered in nuclear snow from their collapsed reactors. Art, the reason I'm here now is because I believe a nuclear weapon set off by Iraq in the Middle East war with Israel might have something to do with the damaged timeline. I will test that theory and get back to you. Please pray that we discover the reason why there is no apparent future after 2564. So I couldn't resist. I thought that was quite a good fax. There you have it. Time Traveler Line, you are on the air. Hello.
Hello.
You claim to be a time traveler.
Yes, I do. I have time traveled.
Okay, so in other words, you're in the here and now presently.
Yes, I'm here now. I time traveled back to 1987. Where I actually have...
That was actually a pretty good year.
Yeah, that was a good year. I have some proof of the matter. There is a Pink Floyd album called Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Yeah.
And there's a photograph of me in that album.
Of you?
Yes. The song is called Yet Another Movie.
Well, but how could we know that it was you of, what'd you say, 87, right?
Yes.
How would we know that was you of 87? Well, I guess it would.
Well, the way it works is your body doesn't actually time travel. Your mind does.
Well, then how would they take a picture of your mind?
They didn't take a picture of my mind. They took a picture of myself when I was in 1987.
Then you were able to physically manifest yourself in 1987, and they couldn't have taken the picture, right?
That is correct. I have a computer in my brain.
Cool. A Pentium?
No, I actually don't know what it is.
Oh, you don't have a Mac up there, do you?
No, I have a some kind of computer implant.
So I suppose when you finally do die, it's going to be the blue screen of death, and you're gone, right?
I don't think so. Actually, I'm being very serious. I'm trying.
I know you are. I'm giving you trouble. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. You have a computer in your brain.
Yes. I am in contact with the future right now. They communicate with me through this computer telepathically and psychically.
To as far out as what year?
From what I've been told, 2050.
All right. It's obviously going to be important to all of us to know what's coming between now and 2050. Any little shred of anything you can give us.
I can tell you this, that right now aliens live in us, in every single person on this planet, and no one is aware of it.
You mean every one of us are in effect possessed?
If you want to call it that. It's not something that you can notice.
If they're in us, that's what I call it.
That's what I call it, too. They possess us.
You know what? If this were real, now here's the only problem I've got. If what you're telling me would be real, I mean, I've seen Star Trek. I've seen Kirk get thrown on the floor, tortured, when he would do the kind of thing that you and I are doing right now. If aliens were actually in each one of us, then my talking about this on the air openly with you would cause me to go thrashing around on the floor in pain, holding my head, screaming, and or same for you.
Yes, it's not something that we notice, though. They don't have physical form. They are some kind of something else, but they don't have physical form, and they possess us this way. Right now, in the world today, nobody is aware of it. I am aware of it because I have a computer in my brain. The computer was put in my brain in 1992 through an MRI scan.
Why you?
Well, I've been, since late March of 1999, I've been in a psychic battle for, it's almost 2 years now. They tell me that I'm the Hopi prophet.
So you're fighting the computer, in essence? Is that right?
No, there's two sides. It's like the future is playing a game so to speak.
Well, all this aside, and I wish you luck in your battle, it is important to us to know what's coming, if you can give us any shreds of info on it.
Let me tell you this, that in the future, everybody knows that there's aliens. You supposedly have a choice whether they can live in you or not.
In other words, we are the aliens.
No. Well, we're all aliens.
Yep.
I mean, just look at this tiny little speck that we call Earth that we're on.
No, but I think the most important thing you said is that aliens are already here. They're in every one of us. So
That's correct.
So in effect, we are the aliens.
Yes.
The entire world has been possessed.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here's the part I don't get. The world right now is really, really screwed up. So if the aliens are in all of us, they're really misbehaving, and they began about 30 years ago. So none of this is our fault; it's their fault.
They are.
All right, sir.
They operate on a higher mind level. They operate in an abstract world.
Yeah, but they're acting like social gorillas.
They are. They're bad. They've been possessing me. I've got lumps on the sides of my head.
Oh my God.
And they're in me right now.
Yeah.
They communicate with me. They have my body split in half. The left side of my body is false, the right side is true, and they tap little sections of my body. That's another way that they communicate with me.
I've seen guys like you at football games.
Really?
Yeah, in the crowd. Half of them is, well, anyway. Listen, thank you very much for the call. I almost don't know how to deal with that. God, no. What are you going to do? There's another new concept for you. Do you ever consider that not only are the aliens here, but they're in every single one of us? That would account for a lot, wouldn't it? We are all aliens. We have been long since possessed. And if we can use the mark of social behavior as a moment when it occurred, it was about 30-some-odd years ago. That sure would answer a lot of questions.
Little things, but basically, even if we lost the First World War, in some dimensions, it'd end up almost the same. There's different points of history that just absolutely have to happen.
Well, what about Canada and Mexico? And, I take it there is a Canada, there is a Mexico.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was one that I went to where Martin Luther King didn't exist. Malcolm X didn't.
These would be
radical.
Very, very different then.
Right. So the civil rights movements didn't happen.
Didn't happen?
Didn't happen.
Then what would the state of blacks be in your dimension versus this one?
Well, in that one, they were still segregated out. Whites-only areas in malls.
Well, that stinks. So you're in you should count your lucky stars that you're in a better place.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, that dimension was bad.
Are you bummed out that you're stuck here?
No. It's okay.
Do you frequently tell people what you're telling me now?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
That's probably a good idea.
Right.
A lot of them wouldn't take it real well.
Not really.
Well, listen, I certainly appreciate your calling me.
Oh, okay.
And you have a good night, sir.
I came up with an idea to build a 1/1/1 scale of a time portal model.
A time portal model?
Yeah, it's going to be interactive. You can input commands and all that stuff. It'll light up and everything, but it won't actually work. It'll be like a video game.
Huh. Well, good, because most of the other people that I've had communication with regarding time travel over the years are now among the missing. Principally, of course, Dr. David Anderson. Boy, he was quite a guy. If anybody knows where Dr. David Anderson has disappeared to, I sure would like to know. And, of course, others, as you're well aware, who have talked of having or about ready to use time machines. These people have just gone. I mean, they really are gone.
To time travel, so I would have no hesitation to do it.
Well, since it's a one-shot deal, of course, you would take back with you the knowledge to build another machine, I suppose, if you had to, if the technology was available at whatever time you chose. Well, a million questions. What would you choose? If you had the machine, you could go to the future, you could go to the past, but it's a one-way ticket, basically. Where would you go? Have you made that decision?
No, I mean, I haven't. I mean, for me, right at this particular point, it's just to see that my equations would, in fact, lead to these effects and to actually do it. It's
right.
The notion of the sweetness of the technology, of knowing, that we have understood some really fundamental new aspect about the physical world. That's the thing that would motivate me to do it. This question of what to do with it is actually a very important ethical consideration because, the notion of time travel leads to the notion of time travel abuses. Any new technology has that associated with it, and the question is that if you have this new technology, don't you have to worry about how it might be abused? And
no doubt. What abuses do you imagine?
Well, I mean, imagine what time travel would be like in the hands of terrorists. I mean, you see what I'm getting at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the thing is that one has to be careful about that sort of thing. And so I believe that once the technology is developed, like any technology, it has to be regulated. That doesn't mean that the technology should be prevented because also there's the positive aspect of the technology. In other words, time travel could be used as an early warning device to tell us of disasters, preventing, catastrophes. So the thing is that like any other technology, it's going to require regulation. And there will have to be sort of a time travel commission that would oversee the ethics of using the machine, the considerations that would be involved, and of monitoring possible abuses. One of my favorite movies is called Time Cop, and the title of the movie is doesn't do justice to the content. I thought that the movie was actually quite good with Claude Van Damme, but the notion was that they had a time regulation commission that essentially monitored abuses in time travel, and that is something that will eventually have to happen.